Hello, welcome to Addicts Not So Anonymous. I'm Shane Hunter, and in this video I'm going to be interviewing my friend Lorna, who's a successful Muay Thai fighter, a champion. As well as an aspiring artist.
Ourself is a product of our environment and the specific arrangement of experiences along an invisible thread of time. Imagine that these nylon threads are like the lines of time, and as we sort of hurtle towards death on the opposite side of the room, we're continually collecting just little beads of experience and ideas and pain and pleasure. Then we cast a light on it or give it awareness, and suddenly, there we have our sense of self. Now, according to my infantile understanding of psychology, the collection of these beads is a mostly unconscious process. We're not actually aware of what we're collecting or not collecting. What would this sculpture have looked like if it was created in the dark? Just for an example, the self that I unconsciously created during the course of my childhood, horrendous teenage years, a period of severe drunkenness and the resulting methamphetamine experiment, probably looks a bit more like this. Self-destructive tendencies, sort of an irrational attachment to things that make me feel worthless. The time that my dog humped me so hard that he left a scar on my leg. Daddy issues. The end of my acting career, because I didn't get that part in that play and I just gave up, so I quit acting forever.
She's a very funny, smart person who's had to battle with addiction and has overcome it. I'm doing these videos so I can understand addiction better and my own flaws, as well as promoting my upcoming comedy shows, Blaze Against the Machine, which will be at the Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne and Perth comedy festivals. I'm doing this because I spent years as an ideologue that thought that evil and good were between some sort of class struggle, but I now believe that it's more in the internal psychology. And I'm trying to understand that shit.
Mind consciousness is like a liar at a press conference, having to justify the corrupt president's decisions with lies. You know, like my subconscious is like, Shane, when are you going to start going to the gym? We are in a motivational recession at the moment. When our motivation increases, we will see jobs increase. Yeah.
Hello, I'm here with my friend Lorna, who was a degenerate alcoholic for a number of years, who's managed to turn their life around and become a successful Muay Thai fighter. And today we're going to ask Lorna how it all happened, so we can get some tips on how to be less degenerate ourselves. Thank you for being here, Lorna.
Thanks for having me, Shane.
Lorna, tell us about how you... The worst you got and your relationship with addiction, and we'll go from there, mate.
Yeah, start at the bottom.
Start at the bottom.
Okay. It was a slippery slide. I think it started definitely from just drinking way too much.
Have fun at slippery slides.
That's so good. It was just one of those things that I've always felt like that kind of gross, we've talked about this before, that existential angst. You know, just like this deep loneliness.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It was just like this thing, like I just didn't understand why I existed and what I was doing. And the more I tried to kind of push that down, and I try and do artwork, I try and draw stuff, I try and achieve things in life, and then the doubt would creep in and tell me I'm not good enough, and I'd quit. And I've always been one of these people that goes super hard into something for as long as I can, and then as soon as I've achieved moderate success, even just above average, I quit and move on to something else.
And why do you think that is, Lorna?
I can't deal with failure.
Yeah, it's very hard to constantly experience repeated failure again and again and then keep going.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I would have the first failure and just fail.
Oh, right.
I get to a point where I work so hard at everything I do that I blast straight through all the learner failures. They don't even bother me because I'm learning, so it's okay. You know, I give myself forgiveness at school. You're learning. Everybody's like, you're doing great though, sport. Keep going. And then as soon as I'm proficient and people stop giving me those props and there's no excuse anymore to make a learner mistake.
Right, you're no longer, yeah, right.
Then I'm suddenly...
she's new.
Yeah, it's now you know how to do what you're doing. And then when I start fucking up there, that's when I go, oh yeah, I'm not meant to do this. I'm a fuck up.
Right.
I'm a loser. Like, why did I think I could ever do this?
I had an uncle who was really proficient at a lot of things, including football, and could have been a professional football player, and a lot of the clubs wanted him. But when he was 19, he sort of rationalized an excuse not to try, because I think he was like that, where he was afraid of the failure.
Yeah.
And he was kind of like, oh, you know, grown men running around football, that's a bit silly.
Yes, man.
And have you ever experienced that way of sort of rationalizing not trying, where you're
constantly.
not honest with your reason for not doing it, of like, oh, I'm just a coward. And you've kind of come up with a narrative of like, no, I'm not doing that because I'm more noble than that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. That's my life story. That's it. That's exactly it. And the trouble is, like, so with it, like, because your brain is so fucking strong. And especially, like, now I understand this with fighting, and we can talk about that a little bit more later. But the idea that, like, now I'm aware of what that doubt mind sounds like. So I hear it come up and I go, oh, you're doing that thing again where you're getting extra creative. Like, I'm so fucking creative in general as a kid growing up. Like, I had this psycho imagination. So then when I got older and faced with doubt, my doubt is creative.
Right. So your greatest piece of art is your own doubt.
Yeah. It's
so you've got
good.
like a Mona Lisa of doubt?
Yeah.
Like you've just drawn a person just curled up in the fetus position?
And every time it like gets perfect, it'll rewrite itself and make itself more perfect. Like it's like an AIDS virus.
Mutate.
Yeah, it mutates.
Right, yeah.
Like, so there's no vaccine. Like, and every time I think I've dealt with it, every single fight I've had, I deal with one doubt. And I'll be like,
in the Muay Thai world we're talking about, not
in the
like
Muay Thai world,
in pubs or whatever.
Nah. You
don't have any doubt for that. So...
Yeah, so anyways, I'll start back there. So that the whole idea is that, like, I have this ache in me to do something meaningful, I guess, with my life, whatever the fuck it is. And my parents are artists, and my parents were hypercritical growing up. So, like, I loved them, and I idolized them. Well, my dad especially. But then I was never good enough for him. You know, this...
So you've told me some stories where you said that you would, like, be like a kid... And you go, look at this, mummy and daddy.
Yeah.
And it'll be like a kid's drawing, maybe a great drawing for a kid.
Yeah.
And they've kind of come with an adult critic and go, oh, mate, that's fucking ridiculous. What do you call that, mate? Where's your technique?
Yeah.
And
That's exactly
judging you by the standards of the pinnacle of the art world rather than benevolent encouragement.
Yeah, well, this is the thing that I've said this in one of my videos once, but my mom said this to me as a quote, absolute quote from my mother. I like show it to her and she goes, you know, Lorna, I'm not going to tell you it's good because you're my daughter. I'm going to tell you it's good when it's good. So I was like, and then I take it to my dad. How old were you at the time? I don't know, 5, 7.
Yeah, nice.
You know, but this is my whole life. Like, this is every time I try. And I run back upstairs, like, get to work on it. Like, I took one drawing. I remember I made this big, like, collage drawing. All these little decals and all this cool shit that I was really into, like Pennywise logo and all this cool stuff, maybe 10 years old. And took it down and showed it to my dad. He's like, oh, I could use a bit more contrast. And I was like, oh, yeah, no worries. So I run back upstairs. I'm shading the fuck out of it. I'm trying to make it real perfect. I take it back to him, and he's like, hey, did you set the table? You know
really?
I mean?
Like
a
wow.
little. Because they just, and the good thing about it, like, my parents are kind of like psychedelics in the way that, like, you go into that world, and it's like, it just fucking bowls you over. And it's like, no, we don't care if you feel good or not. Like, we're here to help you be the best version of you possible. And I don't give a shit if you are uncomfortable.
But like, so the Jews believed that God had 2 hands, right?
Yeah.
So mercy and judgment. And so on the one hand, if you're too merciful and you're like, oh, that's the best bloody drawing I've ever seen, mate. That's amazing. You've done it perfectly, right? What would be maybe unbalanced. But then to go all the way to just judgment and go, yeah, mate, that's fucking worse than shading.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Is the other extreme. So, you know, it seems like they were unbalanced, and maybe in your own brain, that's meant that the judgment side of you has developed and become stronger. Yeah. So you're always savaging yourself with just judgment.
Yeah. And I don't know if, like, the ache, this weird ache to do stuff and have a meaning in my life or whatever, have a reason for existing, was caused by this, and I don't think that is. I feel like I had this sensation since as early as I can remember. My parents haven't always judged me. I'm surely like I wasn't 1 year old and they were telling me I was walking wrong. You know, like surely.
Mate, you call that walking? You're stumbling, you little shit.
Pick up your feet.
Pick up your feet, goddamn.
So yeah, I wouldn't say that it was caused by them, but I'd say that. So I had this thing, and I needed to do stuff, and I had this internal filter already that told me I wasn't probably good enough for anything, but it always pushed me to keep trying. And my parents were good in that way, that they weren't so benevolent that they would, just tell me like, oh, you're just the bee's knees, you're just doing great. Because I've seen kids that have grown up that way too, and then they have no fucking personality or no way of like navigating the world because they've never dealt with shit before. And luckily, like my hardest critics were always in my house with me, so I was like. And I think that's another idea, like this is my picture of family, and probably one of the main reasons why I went to the opposite side of the country and thinking I was going to be fine, because it was like, ugh, just get rid of those, like, just fuck that judgment off.
So
like,
you were trying to run away from judgment, like with actual travel.
Yeah, just literally go as far away as I can. And then I got here, and I had a boyfriend at the time, so I was with him for 6 years, and he was fucking amazing. He had like a huge group of friends. I had this big crew of amazing people around me. And then still that ache like never really left me. And every once in a while I just have these just fucking meltdowns where I was like, I've got to go back to school, or I have to do something. Something's not right. And it's just depression and just feeling shitty and horrible. So I bury it. Take drugs, whatever it is, just to get that like level of, I don't know, either just wash away what that ache is. But then of course, like every time after I would be drunk for days, the ache was bigger and bigger. The hole just keeps getting bigger because I'm not filling it with anything. And then every once in a while I'd get this like inspirational moment where I'd be like, fuck, I'm just going to go and do a painting. And I'd just sit in my room and paint, play the guitar, whatever the fuck it was, just to figure it out. And then I was like, oh yeah, this is the thing that always makes me happy. But this is also the thing that makes me feel the most lonely. Because it's the closest thing that's connected to my dad probably, and never feeling like I'm good enough for my parents. Because they're artists, so that's their world. It's the same thing as probably like, I don't know, like baseball players whose parents are baseball players, and they're just like, fuck this, like I don't want to do it. And I do want to do it. At my core, I love to create shit. So
I was wondering, so with the getting rid of the existential dread through doing creative stuff, do you feel that because if you create something that's yours, that's an authentic expression of you, which differs from saying if you're just working at some job that anyone could do, that you don't feel that you're actually alive or expressing yourself. But then do you also feel that you're afraid to promote your art or expose your art out there, because then if it's judged negatively, that means the authentic you is being judged negatively? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And there's three different channels of my life where this happens. And there's the first one you described, which is work. And that's like, like going to do a fucking admin job. There are times where I took 6 months off and just painted, and it was like the time of my life, but I was miserable again at the end of it. And because I wasn't making any money, and I was so scared to put my artwork out in the world. I didn't think it was good enough, all that stupid shit. And so then I went back to the admin world, and I was like, oh, thank God. It's like getting into a bath of warm water. It's just so easy. And I just sit there, just show up. I don't give a fuck. And then slowly that creep comes back again. And I'm like, I'm just literally spending 8 hours of my life doing something for someone else that I don't give a fuck about. And so I had to change that, because this thing comes creeping back. Every time I'll run away from it because it hurts. But I know that like the thing to create something is what I need to do. And every channel off of that is a mistake. Every channel off of that is just drugs, is just alcohol, is just an admin job, it's just safety, that I'm avoiding the actual responsibility of this thing. Because I'm scared of taking that responsibility on, exactly like you say. And then the second channel of that is obviously creativity, and just going straight into it. Like diving into it, making artwork, making my videos, whatever it is, just making something.
And
action. Should I start from talking about the third channel, or the start of this idea? 3. All right. So like the first that first channel is me going and doing a mindless admin job. The second channel is me actually diving in and doing my artwork. You know, just like committing to being 100% responsible for my own life. Whether it's making artwork or really any of the things that I've been trying to do lately. It's just to get something out that's like 100% my responsibility. And then I have to face all that doubt, all that constant uncertainty, never knowing if you're good enough, nobody ever paying attention to the shit you do, because that creative world is fucking ruthless.
Do you think it's kind of like being a stripper, but like for your soul? Do you know what I mean? Like, and if you come out and you strip, right, and you show your creativity or whatever, and then people hate it, and they're like, "Boo, you fucking saggy soul tits," or whatever. Then you're like, "Oh, I guess my soul's no good."
Yeah.
And instead of, but what do you do? You can either go, "Well, I'm never going to go strip again,"
and nobody wants that.
Or you can try and work on your soul, and
like go and lift some weights and get a breast lift.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's where Channel 3 comes in. It's like exploring the line between those two by pushing yourself in places where you're uncomfortable. And I think like it's a matter of maturity that you go through. Like, I realize I can't do the admin channel. I realize that I'm too shit scared to do the full art channel, or I have been up to maybe recently, hopefully. And then the third one is this, where you take on some kind of new addiction, some kind of new challenge, some kind of new thing. You just dive into it and go balls deep, like have a fucking ideology that you follow. And this is a cause that I live for. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
So you just like dive into something, and then that's your meaning, and that's your reality, and that's like everything that matters is me getting a championship belt, and that's it. That's all that matters. And you fucking go to training every single day as hard as you can. And there are tangible signposts. There's tangible ways of winning and losing. Like when I go and make a painting, I don't know if I win or lose. Like I don't know if there's so many variables of what could make that worthwhile or not. And I know that in the inside of me, if I make something while I'm feeling like connected to it and in the flow state, it feels good when it comes out.
So I've got a few ideas around here.
Excellent.
So one idea is, so first of all, I heard that, so you know that experiment where they get rats in cages, and like if the rat isn't in a social environment, it'll get depressed and it'll drink cocaine water until it dies. And then they were like, see, drugs, they're bad. Don't do drugs. Yeah. And then they got the same rats and they put them in a social environment, and then the rats would fuck other rats and stuff and not kill themselves with drugs, even if they had the option there. But then there was another experiment where they found that if a rat was bullied by the other rats, they're more likely to go do the cocaine water.
Oh, wow.
And I wondered to what degree if your own inner critic can like be punching yourself in the head.
Oh,
so
man.
You're bullying yourself, which weakens you to want to then go take the cocaine water or alcohol at the pub. And then the other thing that I wonder is with ideology, you're getting external validation from other people in the cult. And you go, oh, well, I guess this is who I am. And because I feel like, that public persona, you know those like things at the used car sales place where they have the big balloon man
wacky waving in the
wind. And like the wind is like the social validation of our peers. And then we're like over there, and then we're like, oh, this is who I am.
Yeah.
I've done this of my own volition. And then, so I wondered to what degree in the Muay Thai world does is your identity being propped up by your peer group? But then that doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong, because to some degree, you know, your peer group is part of the reason why you wouldn't get your cock out in a pub.
Yeah.
You know, when you get your cock
keep
out.
You accountable. Yeah, I have often done that, yes.
And, so what do you think of all that?
No, I think that's 100% it. Like, when I didn't have any connection to anything, that was when I completely fucking lost it, just went off the rails.
So can you tell us about how crazy it got?
Oh, yeah. I was just drunk all the time. I just started drinking whiskey like day in, day out. And I remember what you just interviewed Garrett for the same kind of thing and asking him why he started drinking. It's very similar concept. It's like I had this idea in my head, okay, that's it. I have to be an artist. Like, that's who I am. And I've read, I just read books all the time, like reading about these artists, and they were all fucked up, and they all like died from heroin overdoses.
So the romanticism of, so you went with whiskey because it sounds more romantic than like, you know, vodka cruises or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, wine, I mean, whatever I could get my hands on, but whiskey in particular kind of somehow made me feel more badass, more punk rock or something. Yeah. So I just was always like,
I drink whiskey, I'm fucking John Wayne.
Yeah. So, like, yeah, I mean, I was working in the mines, too, at this point, because I didn't have money to go back to school. I'm a fucking immigrant in this country, so there's a lot of...
Wait a minute, you're a fucking immigrant.
I am.
Stop the interview.
I know, I'm an alien. So my life is slightly more difficult because of my immigration status. So that makes I was having to pay international student fees if I wanted to go back to school. Like, school really was not going to solve my problem. What I needed was to just like accept that I wanted to do something and do it.
Just fucking Nike. Do it.
Nah, and I couldn't do that. I tried everything. I tried all kinds of little things, and anytime I got to a point of potential failure, I run away, start drinking again. And then, so I started working in the mines, and I was fucking miserable. Obviously, the entire value system of the mines was completely opposite to me. And my partner at the time was working the opposite shift. So we were week on, week off, or 2 weeks on, 1 week off, in alternation with each other.
Right, so you
never saw each other.
You never saw each other.
No, we'd like pass each other on the highway, pull over, like give each other a kiss, and then go on. He'd go home and have fun with his life, and I'd go to work, and then vice versa. But the trouble was, when I went home, I wasn't having fun with my life because I kind of started just alienating myself from people. And I'd go to the movie store. You're allowed to get 10 movies out at once. That was it. That was the maximum. This is so gross. Like, this is how stupid I was. I didn't even like think of the internet. I didn't even sort my life out at all. I just went to the movie store and got 10 movies. And I would just lay there and drink all day watching movies until I fell asleep.
So you didn't just choose to lying on the couch, having your consciousness become subordinate to the stupid narratives of the TV or whatever, but then you kind of doubled it up with like alcohol, so you're kind of like mixing your drugs together.
Yeah, just like give me ideology, give me culture, just tell me how to live my life. But then I hate it all so much that I just drink it away.
Wow.
And so I just eventually, like, I didn't want to be around people.
You know how like they say that like apparently people report having transcendental experiences where they're like on acid, or like they're in nature, or like they're meditating, or the child's been born or some shit, and they're like, oh, I feel one with the universe. And then if that's true, it's possible to have a transcendental experience where you transcend yourself. Is it possible to have a descendental moment where you descend yourself and you're at one with nothing?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like back down to nihilism. Or
you're everything with nothing? I don't know.
Well, yeah, like an eraser, kind of like, and I feel like that's a lot what alcohol does, for me at least anyway. It is an eraser. Like, of all that, if being in the flow and making something meaningful is being full, alcohol is the eraser, is the opposite of that sensation. So it just numbs it all for me. So like, I feel fulfilled and satisfied in there, but there's a high risk factor because I have to put a lot of responsibility into it and vulnerability. But with alcohol, it doesn't matter.
So the interesting thing about procrastination, right, is that I heard that part of it is that your fight or flight response has been triggered, right? And so, fight, flight, or freeze. So like a rabbit or a deer will see a predator and it will like go on the ground and like play dead or run away. And because human beings, we can see obstacles ahead of time, and we can see the lion or the predator of failure or whatever that is, and that being an existential threat to our sense of identity or whatever, and that like, oh, this is who I think I am, but I don't want to risk the assault on that, and so you get triggered into the fight or flight response, and then the way, instead of like running into the shrubs, right? You did travel all around the world from America, maybe your fight or flight response was like, oh, if I go to the other side of the planet, the fucking lion can't get me, right? So instead of running into the bushes, you've just had a lot of alcohol.
Yeah, 100%. And
I wonder if there's any deers, like if you gave them like, I don't know how you would, but like if you stuck like a bottle of whiskey on the hoof. If they saw a lion, they would just start drinking. Like fucking dog cunt.
Well, that's probably like the metaphor would definitely be like what deers do in front of fucking headlights. It's like that thing, like it's so shocking and it's just too much.
You see the train coming and then you
just
start
lay
ripping
down.
cones.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like you just stop. And like I think my natural instinct, because I've got this ambition, whatever that thing is inside me that makes me want to do stuff in the world, has driven me to like, okay, fly across the country, that'll solve it. Okay, get a different job, that'll solve it. Okay, try be a Muay Thai fighter, that'll solve it. Like, so it's always like, I don't really have the lay down and die in me. I have I need to take action. But so what had happened during this period of time is that I took on that lay down and die. And I think for a person like me, and it's not probably the same for everybody.
So you're like being mauled by the bear of life, and you're just like, play dead. He's more scared of me than I'm scared of him. He'll go away.
No, I mean, there were times in there where I was like, oh, this is going to sound so fucked up, but like, where I was like, rape me.
Rape you?
Yeah.
To
like,
who?
To a person.
Why?
Because
so you
I
had an excuse.
Yeah, I just wanted that feeling of like total lack of control. And
why? Because you wanted to avoid the responsibility, or you had such a low opinion of yourself that you hoped that you died or something. Because like suicide is hard, but like if someone murders you,
it's an easy way out.
Then you're like, oh, I didn't kill myself. I didn't quit. Someone else fucking made me quit. Yeah. But you want to quit, but you don't want to be the one to quit. So you're hoping that you're going to get an axe murderer. Yeah,
like I can't be the one that failed, right? And I think more than anything, it wasn't necessarily that, and it certainly wasn't a self-hatred thing, because like if I even considered hating myself, like that was just an obvious.
You should have started like publicly advocating for like, you know, Islamic terrorism, and then you would have been taken to Guantanamo Bay, and then you could have been like, mate, I could have been an amazing artist, but I got swept up in this fucking Al Qaeda shit. It's not me.
Yeah, well, it was mind control.
Circumstances. I'm the victim here.
Yeah, naturally. It was like we were talking about the other day, like I'll just get pregnant. Like I'll just get pregnant and then name the kid excuse, because that will stop me from taking responsibility for my life. And then I can blame everything.
Excuse.
Yeah.
Victimhood, dinner's ready.
Because it is. It's like it's 100% his fault that I didn't achieve my goals.
Right.
Because
that kid's going to grow up so healthy.
I know. I just want to give. I wish I didn't
fucking have you. I'd be a millionaire right now.
I want them to have the glorious childhood I had. I want to give that gift to somebody else, Shane.
Yeah, you want to kick the can down the road.
Yeah. But my parents were wonderful people. I don't think they fucked up that bad. And I think it gave me like this will to keep pursuing shit. It's just that this doubt filter was just a bit too strong. Like that volume's been turned up too high.
We're all good to go? Mm-hmm. So you were talking about how the volume of doubt is like kind of stuck at 11.
Yeah, so
head.
it's...
But do you feel like, you know how like if you get an amplifier and like say you get a mic and you put it near the speaker, it makes that annoying like,
yeah.
Is that what's happening with the voice of doubt in your head? Like it's like amplified in your head, and like it's just, you just have doubt drowning out every other voice in your head.
Yeah, well that's like, that would be like the panic attack type moments.
Do you think it's like, so some people say that like how ancient cultures would like worship multiple gods, like, you know, the fucking Romans or Greeks with fucking Romans, they'll worship like the god of war or all these things, and they're like archetypical emotional states, right? And personalities or sub-personalities in your own head, right? And would you say that you worship the god of doubt?
No,
Do you go to doubt church every Sunday?
I think like it's been imposed on me. I might be in the prison of doubt. Like I feel like I'm in, what's his name? Joseph Fritzl's basement.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like he's my doubt guy, and I just sit in there, and then like every time I try and poke my head out, the guy like looks down at me and goes, "Who the fuck are you kidding? You're not getting out. You're not going." And I'll like attempt stuff, and then he'll be like, "No."
You think you're gonna get out of here? Get out of that window,
basement.
No.
You think the world wants you?
No. It's like it's not change that's stopping you leaving Joseph Fritzl's basement. It's just doubt.
Yeah, it's just doubt.
Well, if I leave the basement, people probably won't like me. It's probably safer in the basement.
Yeah, it's probably just better here, and I'll just like
here's your whiskey.
Stuff. Yeah. And so that's the thing. Like, so every time I come up against that wall, and I think I got so tired of, because I had an awareness that I knew what I needed to do, which was just make stuff because that made me happy. And instead, I was so scared that I'd go back to doing meaningless shit, and then I'd get depressed.
And
being in the
so
meaningless shit.
So one thing I wonder is like, to what degree do we have like a belief? Say if you have a belief that you can't do good at what you want to do, or you don't have the ability, to what degree does that belief create a self-fulfilling prophecy?
Oh.
And then we embody the action of that belief, say not trying or drinking or whatever, which then we take as evidence for the proof of that belief. In the same way that like Moses saw the fucking burning bush or whatever, like do you see like the burning bush of your own doubt, you know, like when you got an STD from fucking some dude you didn't want to do because your self-esteem was low, and then you look down at your burning bush and you're like, you see?
Damn it.
You see? This is God telling me you're no good.
I'm no good. Yeah, definitely. Like, probably the
It's
drugs
talking
won't
to me.
even work. Like, it's not even going to fix it. Like, so I wouldn't even bother going to the doctor. Like, I just lay in it.
Sorry?
I just wouldn't go to the doctor. Like, I just lay in it and keep it.
Keep it there.
Yeah, because it's a reminder. Yeah, it's just like a reminder.
It's like a little to-do note.
Every time I try and get up and draw, I get a bit itchy, and then it reminds me, like, ooh.
Who do you think you are, mate?
Yeah.
You've got a burning pussy.
You've got that burning bush. Yeah, so that's like, I guess that's like the direction of how it got out of control, is that you get to a point where it's like, you know what you got to do. You know someone's, and probably what happens to fucking super religious people where they lose their shit and just do wacky, crazy stuff because they've got this oppressive force all the time telling them they have to do this thing and they have to be perfect, and then every once in a while they have a blowout. And it was like, for
so
me...
like so is that the whole thing? I mean, people theorize this. I don't know if it's true, but like with the whole like Catholic priests, like, oh, you know, I don't have sex, you know, I'm just with God. And the more that they try and repress that, the more likely they're going to fuck kids.
Yes, most definitely. It's a pressure valve. And they're pushing it down. It's like, well, it's not a vagina. It's a little boy's asshole. So that's a different thing. You know what I mean? At least God is watching. But yeah, it's totally rational.
So
you transfer the addiction. You know what I mean? Like, so whatever, the thing that you're suppressing, the thing that you're pushing down.
Well, I wonder to what extent because this is what happened when I was a political extremist. There was a point where like, because it's so hard to get positive emotions when your goal structure is so hard to relate to. Yeah, I'm going to fucking change the system. You know, good luck, mate. And then obviously you're in a cult with crazy people. That takes its toll. And then, so I was in a real bad place. And then part of me was like, can I do some crazy over the top act that would kind of destroy my life, but allow me to feel that I'm relating to that, but then the pain will be gone. Almost like a sense of martyrdom or a death wish.
Yeah.
And so, like, I had this, like, crazy image, like, what if I just get a sledgehammer and, like, you know, I just go there to Sunrise Studio on Channel 7, I just smash it, and then I've got my crazy message, and then, like, I'm arrested, and I'm just like, there you go, working class are going to uprise. You fucking what? And, like, that's the last image before I get taken to the prison.
Yeah.
But then I don't have to have that burden because I've gone, oh, I've done that act and that's the thing or whatever. And to what degree is substance abuse maybe part of that death wish?
Fuck yeah, man. Well, and that's why it escalates 100%, because you get comfortable in this, or it's not even not necessarily comfortable. It's just you get numb. Like, so the all of the color of my life started disappearing because it was just like every day is the same. And then you wake up hungover and feeling fucked and feeling lonely, and it's like, I don't want to reach out to anyone. I just don't care. And I'm such a piece of shit that nobody else is going to want to be around me. So I've got to do something else.
Our beliefs onto other people.
Oh, for sure.
So we go, well, I know I'm a piece of shit. So obviously other people have figured it out.
Well, and you kind of are, too. Like, because I'm not taking care of myself, I don't give a shit about anyone else, really, either. And so I was a piece of shit. Like, when my friends were hanging around me, I was just, you know, like, not fun to be around. And kind of snappy and tired and grumpy because, you know, you're just not taking care of yourself. There's nothing good happening in the inside of my body, so fucking, like, what have I got to offer anybody else? Nothing. And then that's where that led into like socially drinking. So I left that environment. It was all great. It was all fucked up. I broke up with my boyfriend and I just said, like, everything. The only thing that matters to me is pursuing a career in something like art. and I'm just going to dive in. So shake off everything. And I went balls deep into all kinds of conspiracy theories and spirituality and crystals.
What was some of your favorite conspiracy theories?
Oh my God, all of them. Like, you know, like dumb ones where like chemtrails lead you into this idea that fairies are in the sky trying to brush the chemtrails away because they're here to save us. And then there's other alien races battling over.
You went fucking...
Oh, balls deep. Like that you look up at this sky on a sunny day and you can see these like little bright white lights. I read that that's called orgone energy, and these are little entities, like little fairies that are saving us, and you can collect the orgone energy.
So were you just like drunk like on whiskey and like on the internet and you're like...
Smoking heaps of weed, yeah.
Oh yeah, man, fucking chemtrails. Like, do you, I think to some extent that the conspiracy theory, the point of suffering in the universe or whatever isn't like our own actions or our own inability to understand our own fucking head. But like conspiracy theories are great, kind of like ideology, and that you can defer responsibility.
Should
and go, you know who's fucking up my life? The bloody chemtrails, mate. That's what's doing it.
Oh,
not that I'm too scared to try. It's the fucking chemtrails, mate. I would be a fucking gold medal winner if it wasn't for these fucking chemtrails.
That's it. No, it's 100%. Like I would literally have moments where I'd be sitting there being like, I'm trying to draw, but I'd be like, the mercury in my third eye. Like there's so much aluminum in my third eye and fluoride. It's calcium deposits. That's what's causing me.
It's cum.
It's just cum. It was like cum from last night, like sealing
coagulated in your third eye.
Yeah.
So when you were in this crazy pit. So you quit everything. You broke up with your boyfriend.
Yes, and completely disassociated.
And then you were like, great, now I can finally do the thing and reset and have a fresh chance.
Yeah, because I was like, you guys are holding me back.
And then you took that opportunity to really go hard with substance abuse. Is that what happened? Is that
balls deep, like as deep as I could go? Because I was working the mind, so I was flying in and out. So not only had I just eliminated my social circle, like taking care of that, it's taking care of my boyfriend, so no one's holding me accountable for anything,
right?
And taking care of my job, so now I just fly in and out. There's no permanent house.
Sometimes I think that to some extent, you know, you can create the narrative of like, oh, if I'm single, I'll have all the time for me, and I can be the me that I want to be, and blah, blah, blah. But sometimes, not always, because there's crazy people out there, but you could sometimes being in a relationship can make you more sane than if you're not in it, and actually make you achieve things.
Well, it holds you a bit accountable.
Unless you have a psycho partner who's like just even more crazy than you.
Yeah, or like a parent type figure that's always telling you can't do shit, which does happen too. Like, and you feed out that little bit of doubt out into the world, like, oh, I'm not really sure if I'm going to be good at this, and they're like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, just do your job and you'll be fine. So
just
then
stay on the conveyor belt and validate what I'm doing. And if you do what I do, then I'll feel more secure that I'm not following my dreams as well. And we can both not follow our dreams together.
Yeah.
What's that cliche? The cliche that misery loves company?
Yes.
You know, misery, loneliness, ironically, loves to be together with other lonely people.
Yeah, well, and definitely, it's like you're drifting on this shitty raft together, and then it's okay. And what I ended up, like in my head, I had this ideal, like, nah, I need to be with someone who's pushing for their own dreams and my own dreams, and we push on together in different ways, and we just go and we find our own life. And I just had this romantic vision of me drinking whiskey and riding up until 3 a.m. and being like, I'm just so interesting. You know, like I just need... And I'd sit there and just write horrid poetry. I'd go out. So I was working and flying in and out of Darwin at this point. I tried to come back to the Gold Coast again. Fucking disaster. It was a complete disaster. I was drunk all day. And all of my friends were working 9 to 5, like normal jobs. But I had the whole week off, so I'd be back and I'd try and go and hang out with people and stuff. I ended up just going out and like drinking in pubs by myself, like just trying to meet strangers. But I'd always go with a notebook, so I could be like sitting there by myself writing. Was that a way of justifying what you were doing as not complete instant gratification and distraction? Yeah.
Because like I've done the same thing. With,
I was developing a character
with smoking weed, where I'm like, oh no, you'll help me, and I'll have clever ideas, and I'll write on weed. Yeah. And then 3 hours later, I'm just sitting in a YouTube vortex. You're going, what happened to that thing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, mate.
Yeah,
because sometimes I have this voice, because you want your cake and eat it, and you'll justify it. So you're like, oh, well, instead of just sitting here and writing with a lucid brain, I'm going to go to the pub try and like get a bit of fucking action with the fucking people at the pub.
Validate me.
Validate me.
Can't you see that I'm a writer
and
I'm interesting? And then they'd come over and talk to me and be like, oh, I'm a writer. And
what
then
do
I'd be
you,
like,
what do you
God.
put in your notepad?
Yeah. You have so many ideas. I was like, I just desperately needed someone to see that I had ideas because I was too scared to have ideas myself.
Right.
And then, so then I didn't even like being there. So I was like, well, fuck it. I'm going to live in Darwin. I got transferred up there for sort of medical reasons because I was drinking way too much and my brain's a little bit... I can't figure it out if it's an epilepsy type of thing or something. There's an odd thing that happens to my head. And so it was like, it was just getting worse and worse. And probably because I was depressed and drinking all the time and not taking care of myself and not knowing what I was doing. So then
it might be a factor, yeah.
Might be a little factor.
So this is the thing. I wonder if some people, they're mentally ill or depressed or have ADHD or all these kinds of things in the same way that a morbidly obese person has diabetes.
Oh, for sure.
People will latch onto the symptom of maybe an underlying cause.
Yeah.
And then they'll kind of jump on that symptom as an excuse to not address the underlying cause.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I'm so depressed. Yeah, mate, you're sitting there in your fucking room all day, feeling sorry for yourself, and not going out and socialising and not looking after your body. Your body is a temple, and you keep shitting in it. Right? You're taking a big, long turd in the holy water, and then you're wondering why, you
getting
can't,
poisoned.
you can't get in contact with God.
Yeah.
There was a successful comedian who kind of has a stoic, kind of mono-visioned attitude to his goal. So he seems orientated properly. His name's Ben Darso. G'day, Ben. And he's been able to pay off a mortgage in a very difficult industry of comedy, right? And he kind of mentioned how, like, you'll have all these open mic comedians who their shtick is like, yes, I can't get laid, and like I'm fat, and like, and that shit can be funny and whatever. But like, he'll see them like 2 years later, they haven't progressed at all, and they're doing the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what? So you want to go out there and get validated for being a victim? Great.
Yeah, well, and it also becomes a part of your identity. It's like, I am this person, and I can't be creative if I don't get drunk first. Like, I can't access that part of me and that fucked up part of me. Like, so you start writing, like, a lot of my writing at that whole period of time was real depressed, like dark. A lot of my drawings and paintings are real dark, a lot about anxiety and this existential, like, this loneliness and this dread and stuff. And because I didn't really appreciate, I always felt like art was an expression of that thing that we can't express. Like through words very well. That the shit that hurts is supposed to be able to come out. And I thought I was doing my job well if I made a painting, got this concept out, and somebody looked at it and went, oh, yeah, that's so deep. Like, oh, that's so powerful. And everybody would look at my shit and be like, oh, it's dark. And then for me, it didn't feel dark coming out because the ones that I made that I actually felt connected to, like, felt a little bit like an exorcism. It was like, I am expressing myself. I'm finally doing something. I'm doing something that means something. So those were actually like my happiest moments, but they all just looked really dark. The shittiest feeling I've ever had, and I continue to still have, is anytime I do anything with the end result of getting some validation back. And this is why I fucking hate the concept of social media. And actually all I do right now is, making these videos is just constantly on social media. And so I'm realizing like I'm coming face to face with this addictive tendency again to need that validation. And there were always things that made me feel bad. Whenever I felt good, it was when I was just working on something I cared about and I didn't need the validation. No amount of praise for a painting or disgust for a painting actually hurts me. Like, I don't feel it. I don't feel good. I don't feel bad about it. If somebody tells me it's good, I usually assume that they don't know what they're talking about and it's actually shit. Or I fucked up because it's too easy to digest.
Lots of really good comedians have a tendency, they'll do like the most amazing set and like they'll crush it, from start to finish. And then you'll be like, oh, good set, mate. And they're like, oh, nah, mate, nah, it's fucking... Nah, mate, I fucking said that one wrong word and I'm a dog and who the fuck are you to fucking tell me? Why are you trying to trick me? And then,
Yeah, it's like...
But the thing is, that's kind of more egotistical because then you're all in the me part of the brain instead of going, oh, look, there's another human being whose motivations could be sycophantic with malevolent intentions to suck my dick so that their persona in the public thing gets escalated and they can cheat. or it could be coming from purely good intentions, or they could just be just an unconscious swirl of nothing you don't even know, right? And then you know, you could interpret it as the more negative one, but like it's better to assume good intentions and to be trusting, not naively but courageously, and then not be egotistical enough to slap down their compliment and poo-poo them and go, well, thanks, mate. That's what you got to do.
And to take it on either way is sort of unnecessary. You know what I mean? Like, it's all just a part of the process. Anytime you interact with other humans, whether it's because you've created something or just because you like walked into the shops, it doesn't matter what their feedback is. You know what I mean? You can run your life a little bit based on feedback loops. If every time you walk into a shop, someone's mean to you for like a week, you can probably assume that you're fucking up some way. You like walking in with a snarl or something, or you're being rude when you walk in the door, or whatever. So if you need to have enough awareness, you can see how you're impacting other people. But at the same time, like what we tend to do, and I don't know if it's the same for you, but like definitely just being that sensitive of a person, anybody that says anything to me, I'll just read into it. I'll read into it miles deep, and then I'll attach that as a piece of my identity. You know, so like I'm wearing everybody's opinions of everything I've ever done. I continue like to patch them onto me. So I'm like covered in everyone else's idea of myself. But it's not everyone else's idea of myself. It's my perception of everyone else's idea of myself.
It goes again to the burning bush thing where like your core beliefs you'll project out and use that core narrative to interpret everything as part of that underlying proposition that you've decided is true, and then you attach that to your narrative in the same way that an extremist far left-wing ideologue will go, oh, well, that person's saying where you're really from is deep malevolent racism as opposed to a genuine curiosity that might not be malevolent or deeply racist. Yep. You know what I mean?
Oh, exactly.
And so, like, if we are an ideologue of our own self-contempt, we're going to go like, oh, mate, that's proof that I'm a dumb cunt. And then, you know, like the thing that I always say about the Jesus toast. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, seeing the toast.
Where the Christians will see Jesus' face in burnt toast because they have an expectation for miracles or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, you'll see, like, your shitty face burnt onto other people's words, and then you'll see, like, the Jesus toast of your own self-hatred. Because that's the God in the universe you've created in your head. Yeah,
and I get it, like, I get it so bad, and I've talked to somebody else who also gets this exact same thing. So it's good that I know that it exists, and I can see it in her. I can watch her do it, and then I go, "Oh shit, you're doing that thing that I do." So we can both not do it together.
And do you often get disgusted when other people do it?
Oh, it's awful. Oh, it's horrendous.
And are you sometimes not aware that when they do it, it only takes time after that you realise that that's the thing you do, and that's why you're disgusted?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. Isn't that funny? How gross we can be so disgusted by somebody else's behaviour, and then you realise it later. And that also happens too. Like, have you ever had
like the radical left wing and goes, "Your racism is disgusting. Check your white male privilege. Your racism and sexism is disgusting. You white male." Do you know what I mean? It's like you're doing the same logic.
Yeah, it's the exact same logic with different words. It doesn't matter what the words are, it's the same thinking.
Yeah, but underlying, anyway, let's not talk about that. But I wondered to what degree, you know how like Muslims, they have to, allegedly, you know, depending on what sect you are, they pray 5 or 3 times a day, they pray to Mecca. Do you know what I mean? I wonder if you are in the religion of self-hatred, if 3 times a day you get down on your knees and you pray. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, is drinking alcohol or these things, are they kind of like a spiritual ritual of the religion of self-hatred?
Oh, shit, yeah. Well, they're a confirmation of it, definitely. And it's because every time you fail at self-control is another confirmation of why you're not good enough, like why you shouldn't exist. So it's like, no, I'm not going to get drunk at 10 o'clock today. And then 10:15 happens and you get drunk and you're like, fuck, I'm a piece of shit. The next day it's the same thing, over and over.
I wonder if it's like the observer effect. So with like science, right, when they try to use scientific method, they're trying to remove, you know, the effects of the experimenter, right? But like, you know, like, okay, these are 2 particles abstractly bouncing together or whatever. But then the observer effect, this thing where like you look at the particle, it changes the behavior of the particle because you're interacting with it. And I wonder to what degree do we kind of run an experiment of self-hatred, and then like that affects the outcome of the particles, and then you're like, oh, you see, it's I found the self-hatred particle, and then like, you know how like the Schrodinger's cat, and like you before you look into the box, you don't know whether the cat is dead or alive. It's like every time you look in the box, the cat is dead because you hate yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you're going to see only what you want to see, 100%. That's all we can ever see. Like, the story that comes in my head is that people are telling me I'm a good fighter because they feel bad for me. That's what happens. Like, I've got a good record. There's nothing wrong with what I'm doing. I keep winning fights. But every time I hit pads, everything, people are like, oh, yeah, looking good today. And I'd be like, oh, they feel bad for me. That's it. Like, it just happens all the time inside my head. It's the instant response.
Yeah. I don't need your pity.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just work harder tomorrow.
Hey, you did a really good job today, and I was really impressed and happy with your performance. Mate, I don't need your fucking pity, mate.
Yeah, that's
all right?
exactly it.
Why don't you
just like, I'll tell you when I'm doing good, but I never will.
But I never will, because I can't believe I'm capable of it.
Yeah.
So tell us about the Muay Thai, because obviously you've gone from drinking whiskey and and having a pity party 24/7, and now you've had enough that you've done this Muay Thai world where you've had degrees of success, where you bashed up a bunch of people in order to prove that you're capable of bashing people
prove
up.
to daddy that I'm good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was like there was definitely a pivotal moment when I was living up in Darwin while I, had been on a meth bender for a few days, and I had just gotten this tattoo done, and it was like tropical environments. My arm was swelled up and infected. I couldn't bend my arm. It was all swollen and out. I hadn't eaten for 3 days, hadn't slept for probably 3 days, and I was just, it was like just the pure rock bottom. I'd had a few moments in Darwin where I would be super fucked up on MDMA and drunk, and in the middle of the night just looking at myself going, you've got to get your shit together. Like, this isn't right. And MDMA is really good for that. Like, it helps me get to a point where I kind of can look at myself with a kind and forgiving kind of way, but it's like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah, we shouldn't ever use MDMA to treat depression. We should make that illegal.
Never. It's not got any benefits. I mean, the idea that it can help you rewire your constant thinking patterns, like constantly running over those ruts that tell you you're a piece of shit. It just gives you a different perspective. It
disrupt that process.
Yeah, and then so I'd sit in there and I look at myself objectively, and it's like,
well, that's what hallucinogens do. That's so interesting is that they can. You're no longer looking through the same neural pathways, and you can reassess the reality again and see that there's so many possibilities again. And it's really interesting.
Well, it is, and I guess like one of the ways that someone once described it, I think it was I don't know, it's in one of those books, Breaking Open the Head. Maybe where he talks about in all of these clinical trials how people with MDMA or with post-traumatic stress disorder can't go back to those memories because it causes the trauma. Every time you go to it, it's like hitting a live wire; it just explodes. But with MDMA, they're allowed to go back to that memory and sit kind of on the side of it objectively. It doesn't turn on the amygdala; it doesn't turn on that fear response, and then they can have a look at the memory and talk about it a little bit and see through it. And then the next time when they're not on MDMA, they go back to see that memory. They've kind of patched the road a little bit. Right. You know what I mean? So it used to be a really fucked up, rutted up road.
An emotional pothole has been filled.
Yeah. And it just got a little bit filled up just by being able to talk to it and see it. So it isn't, MDMA physically isn't doing any changes to the brain. It's actually your own ability to go into it with safety gear.
It's so funny that most people's use of MDMA is primarily, I think, to disassociate. One thing that's interesting, so I was talking about how when most people use MDMA, well, because I've done the studies, that quite often people use it to kind of ruckusly enjoy things, which is fine, I guess, but me and my friends have experienced where maybe someone's on MDMA and then they're expressing kind of romantic interest because they're all in that love mode. And then the other person's sober and they're like, oh, this is great. Yeah. She's into me. This is fucking fantastic. Yeah. And then they sober up and then it's like, damn, I let you in. I let you in the gate of anyway. But so I feel like MDMA potentially is analogous to a time machine. So you could go back and visit and kind of correct all these traumatic things, right? But instead of using the time machine to do that, you're just traveling back to instead of going back in time for something good, you're just going back to a Roman orgy.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, fuck yeah, suck the dick, yeah, well, you know,
Yeah,
whatever.
just get fucking as much good feeling that you can out of it, as much good sensation.
Take it.
Because
Yeah.
there's no... But the interesting thing about this, man, is that since I've been sober, because I've been sober for 2 years now, since I still take drugs periodically, allegedly, like I'll still have, and now I have an MDMA without any alcohol at all in it, you get those sensations, you still get those feelings of like love and intensity and like, more than love, it's like truth, kind of. It's like you can see people clearly for, oh man, you're just a person. And I think that's why you love people. Like when you're all drunk like that and all fucked up on MDMA, it's like you just see everybody for the best that they are. And you're just like, why did I judge you? Like, why did I think you were ugly or stupid or dumb or whatever? Now I can fuck you. Like, how great is this? And then you wake up in the morning and go, oh, fuck, that was a huge mistake. And so now when I'm sober and I'm like that, I feel all those feelings. I feel all that intensity, but I don't have the lack of inhibition to actually speak or act on it. So it's weird. It's like this bubbling up of this intensity, but I can't speak about it. So I'm like, I'm a fountain, like a joy fountain that's just pulling it down. My rational mind's still there. And I'm going, wow, that's an intense feeling. Like, yeah, they are a good person. But then in the inside of me, I'm like, don't fuck them.
I've made that mistake before, mate. It wears off.
And it always does make you feel small later.
I remember once I was talking to this girl who liked me or whatever, and I wasn't sure how I felt about her. And then I got drunk, and I was like, oh, she looks a lot better now. And then I wondered to what degree I could just spend the rest of my life drunk. And like, I imagine being like at the wedding, just like shit-faced. Like, I do.
Oh, man, I think people do that all the time now. And I think people don't realize that that's what they're doing. That's the sad part. It's like because it's become so normal that like, oh, you're unhappy? Have a drink. Oh, you're unhappy? Eat some pills. Like, no, people so much get themselves wrapped up in situations.
Look, if I could just bury any self-awareness underneath a calm, nourishing blanket of hedonistic pleasure, I'll never have to deal with the real thing.
Yes. And sometimes I think without that self-awareness, a lot of people can do that and they're happy with that. And I go get it, you know, like whatever.
Yeah, I'm suspicious.
I can't, I think there's a deep, like there's that thing again, like the thing that started this whole problem that's so deep inside me. It's so true. It's like every single one of us, I think, with a little bit of self-awareness can hear the voice inside your head that knows what you should be doing. And most of us choose to ignore it periodically. I have learned, especially over fighting, that there's a few voices in my head. Maybe I'm a psycho, I don't know. But there are things that tell me I can't do stuff. And then there's ways of getting through things. And I hear the voice come up all the time and I go, is that true? Don't think so. Keep going. You know, and you keep pushing. And
so you're no longer a slave to this voice.
Yeah, to the voice of doubt. And like, and I am aware that it exists. And the amazing thing is
would you say you're integrating your shadow?
I would
as
say.
Carl Jung would say.
Yeah, I think that's
Sneaky
exactly
Carl.
the process. He knew what he was talking about, that guy.
No, I reckon he's bullshit. I reckon postmodernism's the shit. Anyway.
Yeah, be a victim is very useful for everybody. When I'm fighting, that's what I like to do, is just like curl up in a ball and let people just bash me. And then when I get out of it, I go, it wasn't my fault. They were so aggressive.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it wasn't my fault. It never is your fault when you lose. But like, I can't lose. That's also my problem. Because I have this thing inside me. There's something inside me that's like, don't lose. So even the doubt will come up. I've been in the ring before, sitting in there and been like, oh, I got to get out. Like, you shouldn't be in here. And I go, nah, don't
fighting
lose.
this other person in the ring is less about that other person
That's
and more
never
about
about
your own belief system, and you're fighting that manifested in another person.
Yeah, completely. And that's the weirdest thing about it, is that people are always like, wow, you don't seem like an aggressive person, or it's so violent. Like, how can you G yourself up to beat somebody else
Elbow
up?
some cunt in the head.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's a target. All the time while we're training, it's a target. It's pads in a bag. And then when you're in the ring, it's like you're a target. And all of complex thought disappears. You go straight down to being that animal. And I think probably is actually a healthy thing for everybody to be able to do periodically, is to like disassociate from this like rational.
It's kind of like a sign of like mindfulness, where you're no longer in this neurotic cycle of like,
yes,
fucking this thing and that thing, and then your attention's brought into that. And do you think that alcohol is a way of trying to replicate it, in the sense that when you're drinking a lot, all these other voices are turned down and muted, so you have a break from it.
Yeah.
Although, of course, alcohol the next day makes those voices extra loud because you're hungover.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And then, but yeah, through this kind of flow state that you can enter in Muay Thai, that you're silencing all that stuff. And then if you do well, that you're increasing the self-belief that you're not a complete piece of shit.
Yes.
Which can be counteracting the constant voice that you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, well, and it's so tangible. It's so real.
Like unlike a painting, it's like, oh yeah, but like an elbow to the head and knocking a cunt out is like, oh, that worked.
Yeah, like what I'm physically doing is happening and is working, and I'm involved in it. Whether you win or lose, it doesn't matter, because it's like, it's the process of getting through all of that shit, pushing yourself to like the absolute barest limits of fear, and then walking out of the other side and being like, fuck, I did that. Like, I made it through that. And the winning and all of that stuff is kind of more or less irrelevant. That's on the side. It's the fight camp. It's 6 weeks of training, 6 weeks of diet.
So I feel like sometimes people might think like there's a difference between fear and bravery, and some people are afraid and some people are brave. But what if it's possible that the fear never goes away, but the bravery increases in strength?
Absolutely. You're 100% right.
Thank
and
you.
that's,
Thank you very
that's
much.
one of the
It's
things
good
that
to be
martial
here.
artists talk about.
I like repeating things I've read and heard
Yeah.
and getting credit
You
for
do it so well.
Thank you. I'm like a sophisticated parrot.
Yeah.
Polly wants a cracker. Polly had a thought. So let's give, what advice do you give for all the three people who are watching this?
Well, I think it's really important to do something that makes you afraid, because it's a good idea to get a feel for what it is that causes you fear and what's real fear and what's not, what's manufactured fear inside your head. I think it's really important to take time to consider how your body's functioning internally by what the inputs are that you're putting into it, whether it be through the fucking internet or TV or the food you're eating. Just consciously aware of that it's not the world out there that's out to get you. It's that your own choices individually, every time you make them, are probably causing a pretty big impact on what's happening in your life. And that it's not an immediate fix. Nothing.
You're victim blaming. Isn't that a sneaky little concept? Because I feel like with some memes or like belief systems, like it's like a computer virus, but then in the virus embedded are like defense mechanisms to keep the meme alive, so it can't be killed. And like with this kind of neo-Marxist cancer that's been constructed by these intellectuals in the academic field, it's like they've embedded all these ways of like basically going, no, that's Satan speaking. And like one of them is like, oh, victim blame. And it's like, you know, they can use that for anything. And do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, you could be like, hey, I reckon that, you know, look, an 8-year-old who was raped, that's really sad, but it might be in the best interest for that person to not think that that is their entire identity, and to not use that as a reason for them to limit their future, and that maybe they don't need to be a mollycoddled for the rest of their life.
Right.
You fucking victim blaming scum!
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, totally. Definitely. And anytime you kind of like keep revisiting that narrative and keep teaching it,
Have you seen the recent Dave Chappelle special?
Yes.
The third one?
The third one. No, I saw
the bird one.
What?
It's called Bird Revelations or something. I don't know. And then basically he does a bit where, you know, he does all this big socio-political narrative and all these interesting ideas, and it's very funny. And he talks about the Louis C.K. thing.
Oh, no, I haven't seen
Louis C.K., you know, jerked off in front of some other comedians, and, you know, that was wrong. And, you know, and so, but then he critiques the woman who's come out and said, he stopped my dream of becoming a comedian. And then his joke is saying, oh, imagine if Martin Luther, like, you have a weak spirit, like, imagine if Martin Luther King's dream was that weak, and if someone, you know, if like the government, all they needed to do was jerk off in front of Martin Luther King and he would give up on his dream. Yeah. But like, to what degree is now that there's a culture where like it's now almost promoted that we can latch onto excuses to go, look, obviously what happened could fuck you up or whatever, but I'm not convinced that you can, out of all the things, like, you know what I mean? It's like it's almost like when you start resenting and blaming others or whatever, it's like you're voluntarily ceding control over your own life to some circumstances that you can't control. And then, to what degree is psychologically are we using that as an excuse?
Yeah, and it makes you weaker because you don't get to test that muscle. You don't get to flex the muscle and try it out. And it's important to fail periodically so you learn how to not fail again. It's really, really important. It's important to try it out. And that's probably one of the best things about martial arts training is that, like, I can go into training and be like, oh, my foot hurts today. Be like, okay, no kicking. And then it's like, okay, cool. And then I'm like, oh, that was good. I got out of kicking. So the next day I go, oh, my foot hurts. And it's like, all right, sweet. So you go 3 weeks no kicking. And then you go into a fight and you can't kick and you get the shit beat out of you. And then it's like, oh, well, you should have trained. You know what I mean? You can't have these excuses. You can, my foot's broken, I can't kick. Okay, fair enough. You shouldn't kick. Like these are correct ways. See, there are ways of dealing with real, actual trauma, and then other things that are excuses.
A guy I met whose dad is like really respected and high up in the martial arts world, MMA, and like some guy who's like famous in Korea, and like Muhammad Ali stayed at his house or whatever, and his son is a comedian. And his son like grew up doing MMA or whatever, and he said an interesting thing of saying, is it an owie or an actual injury?
Yes.
And then that would be that protocol. Like if you're bruised or it's an owie, they don't give a fuck. And like if it's an actual injury, great, take 3 weeks off, don't come back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I feel like that line is so easy to compromise or whatever and snowball, and like with this whole like, oh, I'm a victim. Is it an owie or are you fucking injured?
And it's because we don't know enough about consciousness, man, and the way the fucking brain works. And there is so much research out there, and there's so many people doing really good work.
I don't need to know about the introspective journey to hell. All right, so that's been my interview with Lorna. You can check out all her shit in the links at the bottom of this video. And is there anything else you want to say, Lorna?
No, thank you for having me, Shane.
Thank you for having you.